All right. Chris Cuomo on CNN last night. He's hooked on Steve King of Iowa. He's hooked on Steve King of Iowa. It's the one guy they have. It's the one guy they can point to. I can point to 10 of them. 10 of them. But let's listen to Chris Cuomo, Democrat, liberal, New York, Cuomo family, CNN, Cut 9, go.
And I think if the kids don't have the hats on their heads, you have a very different situation in terms of how it's perceived. And I'm okay tolerating all of that and the early...
Wait a minute, pal. What do you mean you're okay tolerating all that? In other words, ladies and gentlemen, you see the hat is the new white hood. That's what they're trying to say. They've been saying that. I'm okay with that. Look, I'm okay with that. So be it. You know, they can wear those hats. Thank you, you jerk. You schmo. You nobody. You think you actually got your job because you earned it? No, you got your job because it's called nepotism. Because you're an idiot. Think you got into Yale because you're smart? No, you got into Yale because your name's Cuomo. Go ahead.
That was wrong because you can correct it, and that's fine. And there was nothing done here to anybody. And the scrutiny that's
Hey, look, what's the problem? The kids were smeared. Their faces are all over. Death threats. They had to shut the school. Today the school's open. Covington, the cops were everywhere. Hey, that's fine. What's the big deal? Nobody was harmed. You hear this? If that were CNN, oh, you'd never hear the end of it. If it was their kids in their school, you'd never hear the end of it. You notice no talk about freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. No. No talk about these thugs, these so-called black Hebrew Israelites, and the other thugs who came in there and then lied about these kids. No. Go ahead.
So you take that as it comes. It wasn't a pretty situation to begin with. But the president...
No, just look how he speed talks through that. Because CNN has anti-Semitism and bigotry all over itself. All over itself. It's dripping with it. Race baiting, dripping with it. Go ahead.
Poached this position. Mm-hmm. And he ignored...
Stop. So the president poached this position. He poached this position. That is the position of a white supremacist, of a racist. This guy is a nobody, had a nobody show in the morning, but they think he's so good they give him his own primetime show. So the President of the United States, ladies and gentlemen, poached this position. That's why the hats are a problem. This is their narrative. That the presidents are racist, that his supporters are racist. This is their narrative over at CNN. There's no diversity of thought in this newsroom. There's no thought whatsoever. They sit there on their fat asses every day and every night trying to figure out how to trash the president and trash his supporters. It must make them feel great when Chris Cuomo's in the Hamptons, when they're roaming around Manhattan, when they're getting a latte at some restaurant. Hey, that's our guy. Recognize. This is their world. That's their bubble. Go ahead.
King, you have to see that for what it is. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make any sense except the most obvious sense. He plays favorites when it comes to bigotry.
Political expediency and to bigotry.
What are you, a talking clown? He plays favorites when it comes to bigotry. Really, Chris Cuomo, you're pointing at yourself. You're looking at yourself in the mirror. I'm sure you do so endlessly. I can tell the way you look into the camera. You're in love with yourself. You've had anti-Semitism and race baiting by race baiters on your own network. You haven't called out a single one. The guy who you talked to, Don Lemon, he's a race baiter. Some think even worse. And there you are talking to him. You've got Democrats going to that National Action Network, which is Sharpton's organization. Do they call them out? No. You know who works with Sharpton? His brother, Andrew Cuomo. Has Andrew Cuomo called out Farrakhan? Maybe he did. I haven't heard it. How about the Democrat Party? Tell me, did they call out Keith Ellison and his association with Jew haters and Farrakhan? No. He was deputy chairman of the DNC. Steve King is who they'll continue to tell you about. But the Democrat Party's loaded with these people. Loaded with leftists, haters, race baiters, racists, anti-Semites. And it's getting worse. Tough guy Chris Cuomo doesn't call them out. His brother cavorts with many of them. Then Don Lemon last night on CNN. This guy's a real reprobate. He really is, in my humble opinion. And I say it with all due respect. Cut 10, go.
The MAGA hat carries a certain connotation that provokes a conditioned reaction from many people.
There you go. A conditioned reaction from many people. Because you see, ladies and gentlemen, the Make America Great Again hat is racist. It evokes concerns about racism. Go ahead.
For marginalized people. For example, Pocahontas, right? This was a Native American.
Tell me something, Sour Lemon. How about Hitler and Stalin? Those names. Does that mean anything to you? When the President of the United States called Hitler and Stalin? Does that bother you? When he's mocked that way on your own network? When you and others imply, if not flat out state, that he's a racist? Pretty outrageous. Go ahead.
Their chaperones should be keenly aware of that. Those kids should know that. And let's say that the kids didn't.
Look, the kids shouldn't wear those hats. Then none of this would have happened. The black Hebrew Israelites wouldn't have attacked them. The Indian Americans wouldn't have confronted them. If they just would distance themselves from Trump, or at least not vocalize it or not portray their support for him, none of this would have happened. The kids were looking for it. They were baiting everybody. Go ahead.
Their chaperone should be responsible.
Shut up, you idiot. I can't believe you have a show of any kind. You're an idiot. Night after night after night. You're a race baiter. Night after night after night. You gave a pass to Antifa. Oh, I remember. You gave a pass to Antifa. So if they're wearing black masks and black outfits and running around with socks filled with golf balls and nickels and marbles, beating the crap out of people, and I'm not just talking about beating the crap out of Klansmen, beating the crap out of other people with whom they disagree. A militia. How about that, Don? You fraud. Angela Rye on CNN last night. They just line up these left-wing hardcore radicals, pretend they're journalists. They invite guests on because they know what these guests are going to say. And here she is. Cut 11, go.
Like, forget Donald Trump for a moment and just think about the symbol of that red hat.
That red hat. That's like a white hood, that red hat. You know, Trump's the grand wizard of the 1600 Pennsylvania Klan over there on Pennsylvania Ave. We know that because Hakeem Jeffries told us. Go ahead.
When I see the Make America Great Again hat now, Chris, I am triggered.
She's triggered. She's triggered. Well, if she's triggered, then I guess we should all burn our hats. We should start burning books. Oh, yes, we need to make the nation safe. For who is it? For Angela Rye. I feel that way whenever I see that CNN logo. I'm triggered like hell. I'm like the horse trigger. I'm triggering all over the place. Go ahead.
triggered. Andre, I think in a lot of ways our friendship has been compromised by the fact that you continue to support this man. The one thing I will say to you, to be absolutely fair, is more than anybody else that I know on this network, you will regularly take Donald Trump to task. I don't agree with you on this last point. But
okay. Well, then, you see, there's a little bit of hope for Andre, whoever that is. A little bit of hope for Andre, because now and then he trashes Trump. Go ahead.
America Great Again hat is just as maddening and frustrating and triggering for me to look at as a KKK hood.
Oh, a KKK hood. So he's a Klansman. He's a Nazi. He's Stalin. And CNN doesn't yank these people? CNN doesn't pull these people? You all know what the Klan did, right? You all know the Klan was the outgrowth of the Democrat Party in the South during Reconstruction, when they opposed President Johnson, President Grant. And you all know, because you listen to this show, that the Klan had an enormous influence on the Democrat Party right into the 20s and 30s. That Franklin Roosevelt's first appointment to the Supreme Court was a former lawyer for the Klansmen and a Klansman in Alabama, Hugo Black. And she's triggered because the Make America Great Again hat reminds her of the Klan. Then she is ignorant about what the Klan is and the Klan did. The Klan hanged people. Several thousand, as a matter of fact. The Klan tortured people, and by people I mean African Americans. The Klan raped women. The Klan did the most horrendous things to black people. The Klan, you know, the militia wing of the old Democrat Party. All the way up to the last century. Segregation. Poll taxes. Literacy tests. All together called Jim Crow. And she's concerned about the MAGA hat. This President of the United States is talked about in ways you wouldn't talk about anybody. Anybody. And yet these broadcast outlets, these newsrooms, they have bookers who ask for these people to come on the programs. And if they're contributors, they pay them to come on the programs because they know what they're going to say. They know how crazy they are. They can't just say, oh, that's a guest. These people aren't banned. They're routinely invited because it jacks up their ratings. What the hell would they do without Donald Trump? But you talk about tone and balkanization. Nothing Trump has tweeted sounds like any of these three kooks. Cuomo, Lemon, and what's her name? Ryan and Rye. None of them. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.